The Funko Pop is Xavier Benedict, 3 years old, almost younger than this channel. He's already at sword swing number 5352, while his mom, who from the looks of it is pregnant again, tells him not to push himself so hard because he's still growing. The kid is locked in, saying he's gonna land a 6 on my cut, while his dad says it's better for him to be training than playing around eating dirt, which is true. But then out of nowhere, the little sword slips out of his hand, spins through the air and sticks into a tree. His dad immediately hits him with some totally unnecessary bullying, saying he's still a long way from being a good swordsman. He's 3, but then when he jumps to grab the sword and realizes he can't reach it, some kind of energy suddenly appears from his hand, the sword pops out of the tree and flies back into his hand. His dad and the baby factory come running over saying they can't believe it, and the protagonist Xavier, which is such an old man name, says he just thought he wanted the sword to come back to his hand, and it kind of listened. His dad starts praising him, saying he never imagined someone with magical talent would be born into the Benedict family. And his mom is all emotional that her Funko Pop was born with powers. But then the dad snatches him up and says it's his turn to hype the kid up, and that from today on he's going to raise him to become the most powerful magic swordsman. But obviously if you've got a 3-year-old swinging a sword like that, this didn't start today. So we rewind a bit and see piles of bodies, an ocean of blood. Humanity thought they'd won and they were about to end the war. That was the good part. The bad part is that all his friends were already dead. His little sister, yeah, probably the one being made in his mom right now. She didn't even get to be born and she still died. And standing in front of him was the Calamity, the Demon King Patrick. Clearly naming characters is not the author's strong point. Patrick says it's impressive. A human made it that far, but today was the end of Xavier Benedict. The demon race was going to return. Xavier jumps in to strike and Patrick smiles and says they'll meet again. Then Xavier unleashes this explosive slash everything blows apart, leaving only a little purple orb behind. Xavier goes over, picks it up, recognizing it as the Demon King's core, the source of his power. If he destroys it, the guy can never be resurrected. Except, it looks like the thing is about to explode. Xavier says there's no one nearby to block the magical blast. Yeah, if everyone's dead, who was blocking for you before? Now it makes sense how you even got that far. He's thinking, if he had even a little magical talent, he could win right now. But even after all those sacrifices, they're going to lose today. His comrades were counting on him. It's frustrating after so many battles not living up to their expectations. If only he were stronger. Then boom, the smoke slips away as he's thinking he needed magic. In a house, someone opens their eyes and there's this blurry woman saying, Andrew, look, the Funko Pop was born. And just like that, our deep web Arthur has arrived. The good part, he kept his memories. The weird part, he grew insanely fast. And the even weirder part, he trained like he had zero patience. The first thing he learned to grab was a sword. What a natural-born talent, with one goal, to become stronger than everyone. Next chapter, the protagonist is out there training in the middle of the forest. 4,998, 4,999. He thinks he's Rock Lee. He's 12 now, and that Demon King scene still hasn't left his head. He says he's gonna kill that bastard, swings, and sends out a pressure wave that wipes out the whole forest. For what? To kill the Demon King, he has to train. Fair enough, he's completely exhausted, lightly leaning on a tree like, okay, what's my next training? Then seriously, he just pulls out a book and starts studying. Efficient, like Elon Musk's friend. He's practicing swordsmanship in the forest. Then he's flying around, throwing fireballs, explosions. I haven't even seen an enemy yet, and he's already blowing up mountains. He leaves a crater and goes, not bad, not bad. But like in the beginning, after the end, there's gossip in the city. Everyone wants to know why the nobles are coming to investigate. Someone says it's good they're investigating because they need to get rid of those pests. But like good modern citizens, everyone complains the nobles are really just stealing their resources. Meanwhile, Xavier walks through town saying hi to Sister Maria, Uncle Jack, greeting everybody. As far as he knows, the city is run by Count Jim Claus. Both he and his servant Michelella are hated by all the nobles. Whenever things get inconvenient, they disappear. They're the kind of people who betray the empire at any moment and trade anything for money. In his past life, humanity suffered because of traitorous nobles like them too. Suddenly, a horse kicks over an old man's apples. The old guy crouches to pick them up and some dude randomly pulls out a whip and lashes him across the back. Xavier stares like he's ready to kill someone. Because the nobles are forcing everyone out of the way to make their grand entrance. And among them is Ion Claus, a 10-year-old noble, telling the commoners to entertain them. He looks to the side and sees a tiny little girl. Sure, he's 10 too, but what is wrong with this kid's brain? He gets up and walks over. Looks like he's about to cause trouble. He grabs some bread and asks, how much? The old woman, trying to avoid problems, says, no, you don't need to pay, just take it, take all my bread. But he's clearly planning something. He reaches into his pocket, says he has to follow the city's rules, throws down 3 gold coins and demands change. Yeah, he's gonna ask for the girl as change. No way. The old woman says she doesn't have change for that much. And he does exactly what you think. He says she can give him the girl as change. People are thinking that poor girl is not gonna have a good life, and honestly, it feels like the author forgot this little noble is 10. Good thing the protagonist is about to save him from jail, or send him straight to hell, because he's already reaching for his sword. But no, he puts the sword away and thinks, for now he can't draw attention because he has a more important mission. Magic is a strong trump card, and it's better if nobody knows. so he's gonna teach this idiot kid a more honest lesson. Up on a rooftop, he says that spot is good enough. Even if someone notices the attack came from there, they won't have time to find him. Claus is down there asking if they're scared of him. He paid more than a fair price, and he's not some random criminal. That little Dementor hand reaches for the girl when suddenly it gets wrapped in water. He starts drowning. His men call out to the young master asking what's happening, but nobody can reach him. The kid is almost passing out while the little girl watches Xavier from far away casting the spell. She decides to pretend she didn't see anything, and it's like Xavier has been leaving the kid to drown for 2 full minutes and he still won't die. Then suddenly this guy named Mr. Publish shows up and stares. He extends his staff and cancels the magic. The filthy noble drops to the ground like trash. So yeah, someone strong just showed up. Mr. Habush waves the staff and breaks the spell. But then the attack turns toward him. Except he slams the staff into the ground and releases a golden aura that even surprises Xavier. The guy pauses for a second, then it's like he looks straight in Xavier's direction. Then Xavier disappears. The soldiers say to take the noble to the doctor, but he shoves everyone away and says no way. He immediately orders the girl to confess that she used the magic, because she's going to prison. Obviously the mother and the girl say they have no idea how to use magic. The kid goes to throw a punch, but then Habush pulls him back and tells Mr. Claus it's better not to act like that because it's not worthy of their house. Claus tells the professor to stop, but Habush warns that the Count won't like this situation. Looks like the Count isn't a good person because the kid instantly panics and apologizes. They start leaving, but Claus says there's no way this ends here. Cut to the Benedict house, where the Funko Pop is eating like crazy. The parents are talking about the nobles who came to collect the year's taxes. The mom mentions the rumor going around town that someone attacked the young heir. The dad laughs and says he definitely deserved it. Then Helena, the protagonist's sister, says she heard it was a water mage. Like, could it be her brother sitting right there? He coughs and says no, as if he'd do something that risky. He was, as always, training in the forest. The mom tells Helena to stop making things up and go study magic already, like it could possibly be her brother. But Helena's tired. She wants to practice magic, not sit there studying. Meanwhile, the dad is struggling to eat, saying it's always rough when tax collection season comes. The mom says they should be grateful at least once they pay. Those people disappear for a whole year. Just 2 more days of annoyance. She hands food to the kid and the dad asks Xavier if he wants a training session. Xavier refuses, and the dad says he's missing a huge chance to train with a famous swordsman who's been on countless battlefields. But Xavier just stands up and says he has things to do later, so they'll train another time. And besides, his dad should train his mind, not just his body. Getting called dumb for free by your own 12-year-old is wild. His sister wants to go train with him, but he tells her to go back to studying and make some potions and herbs, so when he gets hurt, he can rely on her, because she really did have talent for potion making. In his past life, by 16, she was already one of the top producers. But when Xavier got stuck for 2 years on the front lines fighting demons, some of them attacked the house and she got wiped out. Right when she was about to create a potion for Volado's poison, a disease that caused a pandemic and killed 1/3 of the population of the Castle of Bones. That's why in this life, she has to be protected at all costs. Back in the city, that idiot Claus gets slapped across the face. It's his father, who doesn't care at all. He smacks him and tells him to shut up. He asks if it's true he treated Mr. Habush rudely. Claus is furious. Hold on, my dad is hitting me because of a bodyguard? But the older man just says his son really is a disgrace. He doesn't understand what it takes to maintain yourself and become a noble. The kid says it doesn't matter. He has a bunch of bodyguards and a bunch of privileges. But his father calls him an idiot. Noble power comes from military strength, and Habush is an archmage, the strongest in the Claus family. He's the real guardian keeping them in the position they have, not filthy trash like his son. Now it makes sense why Claus is messed up in the head, because his dad goes way too hard, and then he even says a son can always be replaced. Just get another woman pregnant and that's it. Another kid is born. Claus runs off crying. Yeah, you can't be a normal kid with a father like that. The father says it's fine. The boy will reflect on those words. The kid is out there in the city, completely wrecked, wondering how his cursed father can side with a servant instead of him. And it's all the fault of the bastard who used magic on him. When he finds out who it was, that person is going to pay. Meanwhile, in another part of town, near a tree under an orange sky, there's that cute little girl. It's Cecily, the protagonist's friend. He asks if she needs something, and she thanks him for earlier. He gets awkward like, thanks for what? I didn't do anything. But she says it's fine, and hands him a bunch of little fruits. Xavier realizes there's no hiding it. She already knows he's good with swordsmanship and magic, and she tells him to relax. She won't tell anyone as long as he shows her the skills he has. He's still trying to play it off like he has no skills, but there's no way he's fooling Cecily. Here we go. Everyone from the future was unhinged. His childhood friend who fought side by side with him on the front lines for years, a brilliant swordswoman with unmatched intuition. But before the war ended, she was killed by the Syrians, so she died not that long ago, and then got reborn right away. Now she's asking him to share his secrets so they can be partners in crime, blushing while he gets all embarrassed. He says that's fine, but it has to be far from the city. Night falls, and someone punches a tree. It's Claus, thinking that the more he remembers it, the more his anger grows. That runt can't even be that strong. So why does his dad keep giving that guy the advantage? Of course his hand hurts. He's just a kid. He's never held a sword, never trained a single second in his life, and Claus just keeps standing there furious, cursing out even his own father for not valuing him. Then all of a sudden something steps on his back. A forest warlock with huge eyes is already coming in to mess him up. The kid glances back, but the thing almost nails him dead on. He face plants into the dirt like the total idiot he is, then turns around and sees this giant drooling monster right in front of him. He's begging for help, wondering why there's nobody around, when suddenly someone grabs him by the collar and shoves him. He slams into a wall. Now the protagonist is face to face with the creature, and the kid's like, "Wait, did this little kid just push me?" The protagonist grits his teeth and tells the damn beast it's not leaving here alive today. But inside he knows they're on the edge of the forest, and it's not like help is just going to show up. And that's exactly why the creature shouldn't even be here. Why is a monster this close to the city? That would only be possible if the demon race had started moving again. The monster roars, leaps, and swings a huge slap at the protagonist. He dodges by jumping back, slips to the creature's right, and it turns into a full-on Dragon Ball style exchange. The problem is, normal weapons can't really cut magical beasts. Still, thanks to his training, he isn't getting completely overwhelmed, until he takes a hit to the chest and gets shoved back. Cecily and Claus are behind him, stunned. The protagonist wants to use magic, but with that noble brat there, he can't. He could trust Cecily, but that kid would definitely let it slip. So the only option is to deal with the creature without magic, and that won't be easy. Even so, he tells himself he shouldn't be scared. If he really thinks he's going to be the one to kill the Demon King, he can't be afraid of something like this. He charges again, saying he doesn't need magic to finish this monster. It might be his first time fighting a beast in this life, but in his last one he fought countless of them. He runs straight in, then cuts left, slipping under the creature's arm, saying that even without magic he still knows how they work. As he ducks under the arm, he lands a clean slash, tearing up the ground, ripping into its chest. Blood sprays and the beast falls backward. Claus is in shock, saying the kid really killed a magical beast by himself. The protagonist, exhausted, collapses while Cecily calls his name and runs over to help. He gets up and says he's just a little tired, but at least everyone's okay. But then Claus calls to both of them and tells them to look behind. The beast he cut is back up in the very next second. The protagonist realizes the wounds are healing. Seeing that, he knows something's wrong. He shoves Cecily and tells her to run. She says she can't leave him alone, but he yells that she's just holding him back. Cecily takes off, grabs Claus's hand and bolts. Claus says they can't just let the kid die, but she says they can't. They need to go get help. There's no way the author is going to try to shove Claus into the protagonist's party. Although with a dad like that, yeah, you kinda get it. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Tell me. The creature, though, ignores our boy and looks like it's going after them. He shouts at the idiot, throws his sword at its head, but the beast knocks it away with its hand. The good part is the sword lands nearby, so he runs to grab it, thinking that if he can lure this thing deeper into the forest, then at least he'll be able to use magic. He manages to draw it in and it follows, smashing everything. Another tail whip comes through, snaps a tree, and is coming right at his back. He turns, blocks it, slices into the trunk, then a big hand swing comes in. He blocks 2 claw swipes with the blade, but then he takes one straight on, gets launched and crashes into a tree. The good part is, now that everyone's gone, he can use magic, at least in theory. The monster lunges to bite him, but he scoops up a bit of sand and throws it at its eye, which makes no sense, right? Look at the size of that eye, there's no way that covers anything. But the beast ends up half blind anyway. He's just trying to buy time so those two get far enough away. Seriously, he's still worried that the kid might see. Come on, you're gonna die here without using magic. Standing on the edge of a cliff and still trying to gamble. In that moment, he realizes there's no going back. He forms this huge fireball that honestly has a bit of swagger to it. He hurls it like a baseball pitcher. It hits dead center in the middle of the monster's head. Boom, explosion in the forest. Smoke everywhere. And the protagonist celebrates. Then, no way, the cliff breaks and he's gonna fall. If he passes out and wakes up to some creature in a cave, the author really pushed it too far. I'm falling. No. How can I be dying? This is my second life. The kid's more independent now. He activates some magic, a circle, saying there's no way he's dying like this. Meanwhile, Claus looks back, wondering what's happening. Cecily screams Xavier's name and the whole forest gets swallowed by an explosion of light. She's praying he's okay. Then the scene shows what I think is the future protagonist planted in the middle of a crater. Oh no, it's him as a kid, seeing his past self. He's watching with this sad face because everyone is lying on the ground asleep forever. The boy realizes again that his life is flashing before his eyes. Looks like he really died. After a whole lifetime fighting the Demon King, reincarnating, getting this second chance, just for everything to go wrong at the end. But he says no. No matter what happens, he'll protect everyone in this world. Back in the forest, kid, you left a crater in the ground with your back, and you're still going to get up. That's some serious main character energy. He pushes himself up, trying to figure out where he is and whether he's actually alive. His headache is brutal, and yeah, there's a piece of bone sticking out of his leg. The artist went savage. You don't usually see it drawn like that. But never mind. The protagonist, surgeon mode, shoves the bone back in and closes the skin. Easy. I'm back. Let's go play soccer now. Except he feels like the ceiling is calling him. Weird particles of light are guiding him. The problem is he falls on his back again because he's completely exhausted and starving. He looks to the side, thinking about eating the monster he killed and basically roasted, but says he can't. Meat from that kind of creature was never meant for humans. he'll get poisoned. 3 days pass and he hasn't moved. So yeah, the soccer plan didn't happen. He's starving, saying he feels like he's going to die. Yeah, buddy. Use your hands, crawl over and eat the thing. It took you 72 hours to do that. Worst case, you die, which is already guaranteed if you just stay there. So the best option is to move, right? Basic math. He's furious that he has to rely on a magical beast to survive. Then he takes a deep breath, works up the nerve and bites into it. He says, I'll do whatever it takes to survive, and eats. He takes a huge chunk out of the creature and ends up with a full belly. Next scene, he's walking with a cane. The foot where the bone popped out still isn't right, and he's still tripping like a complete idiot, which is exactly what I like to see. If you're gonna draw a kid with bones sticking out, for the love of God, don't have him sprinting around in the next chapter. He's limping along when a slender figure appears behind him and asks if his leg hurts. He turns, asking who's there, and the voice made of light says if he doesn't treat that wound fast, it'll get infected and he'll die. If he just comes closer, he can be healed. It's his only chance to get out of this place. The protagonist recognizes the area as the so-called abyss, a region where mana density is absurd. He has no idea how he ended up somewhere unknown like this. The light keeps telling him to follow, or if he wants to stay put and die, he can do that too. He's pissed already, sure that whoever's waiting for him has a terrible attitude. But he follows the path the strange energy is guiding him along. He pushes through some bushes, shields his face from the light, and runs straight into the slender shape of a marble statue. He asks if he was talking to that statue, and she says yes. She's the goddess Urd, one of the 3 goddesses of fate who manage the roots of the world tree. The protagonist is shocked that gods actually exist. Seriously, you lived a whole life without finding that out, kid? Then the energy comes out from behind the statue and starts wrapping around his foot. Instantly, his body regenerates, and yeah, the statue comes to life. Obviously, with the difference between waist and chest, you could already tell she's powerful. She asks the boy what his name is. He doubts she's really a goddess. How can someone with that much power not even know his name? She starts poking him in the face a bunch, asking if she ever said she was omniscient. She has powers, she doesn't know everything. He's blushing hard, asking why she was abandoned there. The foot goddess says the tree of life has been poisoned, and none of the 3 goddesses know why. Now she's trapped, forced to take care of the roots so the tree doesn't die. While her sisters live the good life soaking up the sun, she's stuck with a fate worse than a goblin's. The protagonist says he's heard of the world tree. Supposedly it connects the heavens, the human world, and the underworld. It represents eternity itself, and people say everything exists because of that tree. She says good, at least he knows the basics. He tells her his name is Xavier. Meanwhile, he's thinking she doesn't seem like a very normal goddess, and if a goddess shows up in a story, obviously she's going to offer a deal. She makes this mischievous face and says if he helps her figure out why the tree is sick, she'll lend him her power. The protagonist thinks it's weird. Can a goddess just hand over power like that? And there's the artist using that legendary low angle from behind shot. She says she's only offering because she knows the odds of another magic swordsman showing up there are basically 0. He's shocked she already knows that. She says it was obvious when she analyzed his body. Plus she's been stuck there for 26 years, so she's bored. If he helps her get out, they've got a deal. The protagonist thinks about her being trapped for 26 years. He lived through that kind of time in his past life. Then she asks if this really is his second life. She can feel way too much resentment and despair in one body, which is strange. The problem is, someone carrying those feelings wouldn't be able to use her power properly. He's stunned, asking how she knows about the second life. She says seeing a child's soul is ridiculously easy. The protagonist gets angry and honestly fair. If gods exist, why did they let humans die like that? She says there's no superior race, gods, demons, human spirits. When you look at entire races, they're all equal. Yes, it's true that not long ago the gods helped humans, but that only weakens a race. He should realize that if humans had been helped, they still wouldn't be able to defend themselves today. He should focus on taking responsibility for saving his people instead of blaming someone else. Yag gets scolded by the foot goddess. Next scene, she forms a ball of light and says that's it for now. He can go back to his world. But she warns him mastering her power won't be easy, and unfortunately she doesn't have time to teach him. Inside that light is the basic knowledge he'll need to manage on his own. The protagonist says nothing. She puts a hand on his head and says he can believe it or not, but his arrival there is something destined. And as he uses those powers, the questions he has will be answered. She tells him to go through the portal. She doesn't know how, but he'll end up back at his home. He just says he understands. She says she's looking forward to good news, and that destiny is waiting for him. He looks back one last time, then crosses the portal. It was literally the scene from the beginning after the end, except instead of finding a dragon, he found the hot goddess. That's an upgrade. The idiot tumbles out on the other side all twisted face first into the ground, thinking he's finally back. But where is he? And the kid can't stay calm for even 1 second. Someone in the background is already screaming, telling him to get away, calling for help. So then, Erd's voice tells him to try. He's standing there looking around, trying to figure out where she is, but she says she's only sending a message, and tells him to focus his energy into his leg and try to climb that tree. He says there's no way he can climb something like that. Oh sure, the kid who killed a demon with a sword can't climb a tree. Okay, but actually it wasn't really climbing, right? It was one huge jump all at once, not climbing branch by branch. In a second he's at the top, stumbling all over the place. But he says it really was easy. His body felt weirdly light, and she explains that not only will his body be better, his vision will be sharper too. She tells him to test it, and when he looks out toward the horizon, he sees, way off in the distance, under a tree, someone asking for help. 3 big guys bullying a little girl who's lost in the middle of the forest. The protagonist thanks her, saying those guys are perfect for practice. In a second, he's already above them. The fastest way to deal with it is to kill the biggest one first. He comes straight in from behind. I honestly thought the guy would react, but no. He takes it right in the back of the neck. The guy goes flying and slams into another tree nearby while the others are trying to figure out who this kid is. Then the protagonist pulls that crucifixion move and lands a rock right in the guy's mouth. The guy's holding his face, can't see anything, while the other one asks what's going on. He turns to the kid and demands to know who he is, but the protagonist just says he doesn't have to explain himself. And the artist really went wild with proportions. The size of the nose on the red-haired guy is insane. He's furious, saying his brothers are going to handle this. They glance at each other and both rush in. The protagonist smiles and the guy's sword cuts nothing but air. In the same instant, he's already behind the other one, and the kid drives a hit right into his spine, sending him exploding into a tree a second later. He snatches the sword the guy dropped mid-air, charges the brother and presses it to his face, telling him to drop his weapon and hand over everything valuable. Immediately, the guy obeys, holding out a little bag of gold, saying he'll do whatever the kid wants. Then the protagonist tells them to apologize to the girl, and the guy tosses the money bag to her. The red-haired one thanks him for being so kind. He says the kid must understand he has a family to feed. But the protagonist says, unfortunately, it's way too late to talk about family now. Then he hits him from behind and wow, rips his leg off. No wait, okay, it's not that. He just makes 2 cuts right behind the knee. He leaves the guy limping, raging, saying the bastard promised. The protagonist says he's already being kind by not killing them. Honestly, I would have killed that guy. Either kill him or leave him completely unharmed, because now he's gonna hate you forever. At least that's how I see it. Then he does the classic night scene. Can you stand up, little girl? Let's go back. Oh my god, you saved me. And she reaches out her hand. Next scene, she's conjuring this green healing energy. Any second now, he's gonna say, I never imagined this girl was actually a healer who died at the hands of demons. She's calling him Big Brother, and all he can think is how incredibly rare it is for a mage to be born with healing abilities. Then everyone hears someone in the distance telling others to go this way. They know they're around here. The protagonist doesn't give second chances. He grabs her by the arm and runs. This girl is way too valuable. No way he's losing her to anyone. They push through the forest, through bushes, jump a waterfall, throw magic, push through more brush, and night falls. He hides in another patch of woods, saying they won't be hunted for a while now. Now that I think about it, this is basically the beginning after the end again, isn't it? The blonde girl he saves in the forest. If he ends up living in her kingdom, I'm done. She asks his name and he says Xavier. Yeah, the first 12-year-old Xavier in history. Her name is Tefana Roman. And the worst part is he calls her Roman, which sounds kind of like a guy's name to me, but whatever. When he hears her family name, he freezes. Wait, the Tefana family. He asks if she has a brother, and she says yes. How does he know? The protagonist says poor Charlin spent his whole life looking for his sister, and he's the one who finds her in a place like this. Wait, I don't get it. Charlin, the brother, calls her Tefana? He's been wondering if he'll ever find her, if she's okay. And the protagonist says yes, she's definitely okay. Then the protagonist pats her head, saying they need to make sure she gets home safely. And now he's thinking that finding this child was a blessing. Night falls, she's asleep while he's resting and talking to Erd. He asks to learn more about the power because it's not really Erd, it's the consciousness she left behind to teach him how to use these abilities. She tells him to take the dagger and says that instead of just concentrating magical power, he should let mana flow intentionally, and since it's a smaller weapon, it's easier to do. With his hand on the dagger, it starts getting wrapped in blue energy. She says he's going to learn a shadow element skill. He has to concentrate as much mana as possible at the tip, shaping it like an arrow. Then he just needs to create a small shadow vortex at the blade's tip, and he'll be able to pierce any armor. With the energy concentrated, she tells him to test it, and he immediately goes to strike the tree. He does this little poke like a tiny stab, and it goes through like butter. Except it doesn't just pierce it. The whole tree explodes. He's staring in shock, saying it's weird because he only did a small stab. Then Erd's soul says that everything she teaches, she forgets, so he needs to remember it himself. He says goodbye, and right then Tefania wakes up, asking what he's doing. But the boy hears something nearby and says something is coming. He picks her up and says they need to stay quiet. He glances up at a tree, climbs fast, puts her up there and tells her to stay silent. When he looks down, a group of bandits is approaching. The red-haired one says he's sure he heard sounds coming from this direction. Seeing the tree completely destroyed, they're sure someone left a bomb there. He says that's good news because it means the healer is nearby. Someone asks how. He says he can feel her aura around here. The ground even has a strange temperature difference, like someone was lying there. The guy is ridiculously precise. Even the protagonist is shocked. The leader tells Jimmy to keep searching, and the weird one says fine, he'll find them. Then he activates a golden energy in his hand that starts moving toward the tree. The protagonist realizes it's a tracking skill. This trio is way more dangerous than the last group, but at the same time, compared to magical beasts, they're nothing. No way he's letting them win here. The tracking magic lights up the top of the tree, and the guy says he found the target. The gray-haired one tells Bob to handle it now, and the loudmouth says, "It's fine. He'll bring both of them down right now." The protagonist notices they're splitting up and working separately, which is perfect for him. Bob stops in front of the tree and says, if the bastard won't come out, he'll knock him down. He swings his axe into the trunk. The whole tree shakes. He hits it again and again, asking how long the kid is going to hide. The protagonist is celebrating quietly, saying everything is going according to plan. Then we see a few minutes earlier, right when the guy was about to activate the tracking magic. Yeah, smart. Since he knows the tracking magic follows other magic, he just threw a ball of water at a different tree, filled it with mana, and that's why the tracking went there. Now Bob is suffering like a complete idiot while he's hiding calmly. The protagonist thinks that if they're going to mess up like this, he'll take one of them with him. As the guy chops and the wet leaves drip, he gathers the droplets to form a water ball above the man's head. The plan is to use the same technique he used on Claws. Bob seems to notice something's wrong, but it's too late. The ball surrounds him, he starts losing his breath, swinging his axe around blindly. And the kid is basically thinking, how can this guy not handle something so simple? They really aren't that different from the earlier ones. He throws the dagger at the fat guy. It pierces straight through and keeps going. I thought the others were nearby, but they only hear the crack from far away. One of them says something's wrong. He can't hear the chopping anymore. Maybe the target they're hunting can use magic. The boss says if that's true, Bob wouldn't stand a chance. Yeah, but why did you split up? Just so he could die alone? Looks like it. They find a half-chopped tree, the ground soaked, and Bob's body is gone. One of them makes a basic deduction, it's wet, but it didn't rain. Must be magic. And what does he do? He touches it. Then he gets hit with a shock. His whole body spasms and he falls backward. The water was poisoned. The boss tells them to be careful. Then, out of nowhere, two rocks come flying at the others, and one of them almost dies again. One rock is headed for the boss, but he fires a little fireball and blows it up mid-air. He says that based on the direction of the attacks, they're being surrounded by multiple enemies. The protagonist stays hidden, thinking, good, so this guy is a fire mage, while the boss orders them not to spread out, saying that would be the best thing for the enemy. But the protagonist thinks it's already too late. They're panicking because without Jimmy to locate opponents, they have no idea where the attacker is. How are they supposed to deal with this? The boss forms a fireball and says it's simple. If the rats won't come out, he'll burn the whole forest down. Immediately, the protagonist steps forward and says hi, telling them to wait. The boss is confused. Why is there a child here? The protagonist says he's an herb gatherer. He doesn't know what's going on, but it looks like there's some chaos happening. They don't really believe him and say he's not leaving. The protagonist asks what they're talking about. They accuse him of killing someone, and he says he's just a kid. Are they insane? But if they're looking for someone, he saw a person pass through here, and if they want, he can tell them. The boss thanks him and says if the info is good, they might even recruit him. But he says he's not really interested. His mom and dad are waiting for him. Then the guy suddenly throws a fireball at him. It tears through everything and the boss is surprised. The kid is gone, and he's already behind the other two. Since it's hard to deal with the fire mage, he needs a 1 versus 1. So he traps both guys in water spheres to cut off their breathing. And then the fire guy blasts flames at them, trying to melt the water. The protagonist says every fire mage has the same traits, a bad temper and a simple mind. The two guys drop to the ground exhausted. Looks like he basically fried them, cooked them right there. And the kid is saying fire mages really are all the same, just dumb. The fire mage is still impatient and comes in with a flaming punch while the protagonist is smiling. He dodges easily to the left and sprints. He grabs a sword that was lying on the ground while the fire guy is confused. Is this kid really going to try to win with swordsmanship? With the sword powered up, the protagonist says he doesn't like killing people, but monsters like him are different. And now that he's figured out the secret behind his powers, he can't let him leave alive. The older guy gets excited, saying finding a kid who uses both sword and magic is even more impressive than that girl. And he leaps at the protagonist, saying he wants the boy. The strike comes straight at the protagonist's chest, and he throws up a water barrier that the guy slams into. Wister put out Diddy's fire and drove the blade into his chest, but the guy deflects it, smacks the sword away, and kicks the kid, sending him flying. The older guy is shocked. Why does a kid this small feel like someone who survived countless fights? The protagonist answers that he's done playing around. The man casts another fire spell and slams it into the ground. The protagonist watches and the guy tells him to die, firing a huge blast straight at him. Could he stop it? He could. But here comes that ego fight. He casts his water and sends the explosion back at the guy. It turns into a dragon, an elemental combination, and when it ends, it looks like everything evaporated. The guy starts celebrating, saying the idiot was defeated and turned to ashes. But while he's laughing, the protagonist is already behind him. Another stab lands dead on, and wow, this one goes through like butter. He's standing there repeating to himself that it's impossible, but yeah, goodbye. His body just drops limp to the ground. The protagonist just stares at him, saying this is what a kidnapper deserves. After that everyday daily aura farming, he climbs up a tree to talk to Tiffania. He says he's handled everything, and they can go back. But she's shaking all over, saying he was incredible. Xavier says no, it was all luck. Reinforcements will show up any minute, so they should leave. She can already tell he doesn't want her to find out, so right away he tells her to relax and not tell anyone. My god, the protagonist is all about that act. Another head pat recycled, while he says he promises nobody will ever hurt her. Back on the ground, the bodies are all stretched out on the floor, and Tefania asks if everyone's dead. He says no. Besides the leader, everyone's just knocked out. But while he's saying that, he suddenly feels something weird and faceplants. She calls out to him, but the scene completely switches to a small town. See? What did I say? A woman asks, Charlene, did the boy wake up? Charlene. If I'm not mistaken, that's the friend from the other life, and he says he's going over to take a look right now. Literally just like beginner after the end. At least they're not some alpha family, because that would be insane too. The woman says he needs to thank Tefania's savior as soon as he gets up, and he says he will. Right then, Tefania comes running in, and her brother tells her to calm down. But she says she wants to help. He tells her to rest. She insists, saying he's been working too much. She wants to be useful too, and she's already recovered. He answers that the biggest problem isn't that she got hurt, it's that she left the village. She tries to apologize, saying she went too far, but it won't happen again. Charlene ignores it, saying it's better to go see how that kid is doing already. He opens the door, and at that exact moment, a huge hand shoots out of the room toward his face. Tefania tells him to stop, and they end up standing there face to face, both confused. For a second, the protagonist thought it was an enemy, but then he recognized him. Next scene, they're at a banquet, and Charlene says he can eat whatever he wants. No need to rush. Tefania is shocked this chubby kid can eat that much. He pats his belly and says he can finally fill his stomach. Then Charlene comments on his accent, asking where he's from. The protagonist reveals he lives in Anzoff, a city under the jurisdiction of Bone Castle. Charlene freaks out and says Bone Castle is 3 days away. How did he end up here? The protagonist says it's a long story, and apparently he's really going to tell the whole thing, so he explains everything. Charlene is in shock hearing there were magical beasts roaming the forest. The protagonist didn't want to scare him, but it's better to know before it's too late. Then Charlene says it's best to take the boy home, because his parents must be extremely worried. They're probably thinking he got eaten by a magical beast. The protagonist is kind of confused. Charlene is coming with him, and Charlene says of course, he's older and he can't let a little kid walk through a dangerous place like that alone again. Tefania tries to help out, saying Xavier is super strong and maybe he doesn't even need an escort. But inevitably, there has to be a touch Tefania's face moment every chapter, and there he goes, saying they're still kids and they need to learn to rely on the people around them. She asks if she can come too, and he says of course. He really should have said no. Send her home so she doesn't get attacked again and force the protagonist to activate his powers and spill all his secrets. The protagonist, on the other hand, sees that Charlene, like always, is someone he can count on. And Tefania is all excited. She can't wait to get kidnapped again to force the plot forward. Out of nowhere, the protagonist starts crying like instantly, from 1 second to the next. This kid's mental state is wrecked. Seeing that, Charlene puts a hand on his shoulder and tells him to relax. They'll find his parents. The protagonist is about to tell him to stop treating him like a child, but Charlene says one day he'll grow up. Next day, Charlene on the road, horse up front, and they're walking. Then the village chief, Corinne, calls out to them and Charlene asks what's up. Charlene starts to say he'll be back soon, and they don't need to worry, but Corinne says it's fine. Everyone here is family. Did he show up just to say goodbye? He's going to die soon, isn't he? Just so we can get traumatized. They'll come back to this village and nobody will be there. On the way, they sing songs, put on flower crowns, make a little bonfire, and the protagonist thinks about the magical beasts. But nothing happens. It's a peaceful trip, and now they're standing face to face with Carpin Castle. Meanwhile, the mom is a mess, desperate to know where her boy Xavier is. Wait, Helena didn't tell anyone he went to a 1v1 against a magical beast? You should already be sure he's dead. The dad says he's going out to search again and tells her to rest, but she says no, she wants to go too. He says she hasn't rested in days. He promises he'll find Xavier, so she needs to stay home and recover. Her expression changes, and she asks if the boy went to the other world. He says that's impossible. He's the protagonist of this story, there's no way he'd die. But she still doesn't believe it, saying they saw that place where he fell and he wasn't there, so he definitely got eaten. The dad tells her to keep hope. Xavier is definitely alive and well. Meanwhile, his little sister is crying, wanting to know where her big brother went. The scene goes back to Clausfie, stuck in his usual routine of getting humiliated by his father. Damn, I don't even know if I'm happy about it. But Claus is asking his father to send a search party to find his friend. But his father, sitting there in a cloud of smoke, says there's nothing to gain from saving some random kid. Claus says the boy saved his life. But yeah, that's not going to work on a dad who doesn't care about you at all. And the father is furious that the boy is kneeling for someone like that. Now the tables turn. The father grabs him and says, "You're a noble. You're humiliating yourself for common people. For God's sake. Remember, there are only two kinds of people in this world. Nobles and those who aren't nobles, who exist to feed the real ones." He throws him to the ground and says he needs to learn to enjoy noble privileges. And to keep them, he has to obey whatever he's told. This dad is clearly bipolar too. The story says that in that moment, Claus felt a deep discomfort. Maybe this wasn't the life he wanted. He's focused, saying he'll figure out what's right. Come on, you show me a character in one chapter trying to buy a girl with 3 gold coins, and in the next you want me to like him? Author, what are you trying to do here? Next scene, Tefania is super happy, opens the window and sees the little birds out there messing around. Her brother asks what she's looking at, and she says the birds are playing. But he says it's not playing, that's how they look out for each other and it helps them get closer. Tefania understands that's how they get close, which means obviously she's going to try to use that on the protagonist somehow. And right then he shows up saying he's going to the shop. She asks what for, and he says he needs some new clothes because he looks totally worn out like a beggar. Charlin offers, "Want to wear my clothes? Look at the dad's swagger." But he refuses. No way he's not wearing those Joker-looking shoes. Next chapter, we're in a forest with the protagonist walking alone, telling Erd there's nobody around so they can talk. His chest starts glowing. "What is this, Erd?" She flies out. "Wow, you're really floating up there." She turns around and says she finally got to come out for a bit. The protagonist wants to know why this woman is coming out of his body. She tells him to calm down. This is just her consciousness. The only reason she can manifest is because he knows what she looks like, and that lets her appear because she's solidified. What the hell? She's floating there, swaying around, saying she's only a consciousness, so he shouldn't think she'll be useful in a fight. He's impressed by how strong this consciousness is. Seriously? Imagination is powerful, even when it's just to get yelled at. The protagonist is furious. She stabbed him in the eye so much that for God's sake she should at least be able to fight magical beasts. But then she tells him to straighten up because class is about to start. That same second, his chest glows again and something else comes out, opening an eye in the tree. The protagonist is shocked he did that, and she tells him to stop being amazed by everything and get inside already. He has a lot to do. He asks what's going to happen, and she explains the beasts he fought were way too weak. That's why she prepared some training partners. The protagonist is excited. That smile is definitely going to disappear. She tells him to be careful. It might look easy, but if he dies too many times, he'll fail the test. He complains that he needs to get home soon so his parents know he's safe, but she tells him to get in already. They don't have time for this argument. She basically throws him in, and the tree closes. She just stands there with an empty speech bubble, and then whoosh, disappears. Then the protagonist finds himself somewhere completely different, with a floating status window saying his name is Xavier Benedict, with magic and swordsmanship. Suddenly something materializes in his hand, the same dagger he always uses. In front of him, an army of stone golems starts approaching. The first test is to fight 5 golems and finish within 10 minutes. Erd warns him that since it's the first duel, he'll get some tips, but next time he's on his own. And he'd better remember that if he loses too many times in a row, he'll start getting exhausted, and this will become impossible. With that, she wishes him good luck. That was the tip? Okay. The golems rush him, and he knows these creatures are way weaker than any magical beast. Would this really count as training? After facing so many creatures in his past life, he can tell how strong something is just by the pressure it gives off. And with that many monsters, he decides magic is the right move. He doesn't even want to waste physical effort on something like this. A bazooka-like blast shoots out of his hand straight at the first golem. The attack hits dead on, and the creature shatters. Damn, he really wiped them out. He clears it in 5 seconds, literally. He tells them to start the next stage, but Erd pops in wanting to know what happened. He says he got a perfect clear. She thumps her chest and says she realizes now he must be hiding his power. Something's wrong. It should be impossible to do that in 5 seconds. But he says he didn't hide anything. She's the one acting weird because she said she was a goddess and would be able to sense his strength. Looks like this copy of her consciousness doesn't have the same ability as the real one. She gets a little awkward and says it's not like that. She's still learning and developing more powers. But it's obvious this copy is kind of cheap. Then she says fine, she gets it. He's a kid you can't underestimate. Now that she understands his strength, the next test can appear. Immediately, what looks like a bunch of stone wolves shows up. There are more stone golems too. She warns him the time limit is shorter. Now it's 5 minutes. The protagonist recognizes these creatures are twice as strong as the last ones, but still ridiculously easy. This time he decides to go in with pure melee. He launches himself at the first one, straight brawling, clean hits with the dagger. 2 more attacks come from above, but he hops, ends up behind another one, realizing these things are way too tough, and it's hard to find a weak point. While he's midair and can't dodge, 4 or 5 attacks come at him, but he slips past the first strike and uses it as a foothold to propel himself, already dodging the second and third. Rage just watches from far away. She's confused. She needed 20 seconds for the first stage herself, so is he 5 or maybe 4 times stronger than a god? That makes no sense. She wants to understand what kind of magic he's using, but that would only be possible with her real body. The monsters keep getting sliced in half, explosions, smoke, debris everywhere, and she's impressed again. Once more, it only takes a minute, and he's done. Then the protagonist says, well, those were a little better, but don't you have anything stronger than that? At this pace, he's just wasting energy for nothing. They were so weak it wasn't even doing anything. But she says he's celebrating way too early. Those creatures didn't give anyone a break. And right then, an axe comes spinning in from behind him. The thing slams straight into the ground, but the protagonist barely slips to the side in time. He slides away, trying to figure out what's coming next. When he looks forward, he freezes, looking shocked while Erd is over there celebrating. Basically, it's another stone beast, only bigger and tougher. And it really is huge, charging in to slash him from behind. He almost gets sliced in half. Erd's smiling. She's still impressed, but she's starting to get used to what he can do. He dodges to the side and realizes the stone golems were the real ones, and they're way stronger. The problem is he's up against 2 of them. Erd asks what happened. Is he holding back? He tells her to shut up and says he's ending this now. The real fight is about to start. He rushes in. The golem swings at him, but he dodges by jumping onto its arms straight up Captain Levi style. He flips through the air, gets behind its neck, and drives his blade right into the back of its head. The first strike doesn't work, but he says he'll handle it now. But then the creature comes at him again, like another arm is growing out of its back or something. A massive fist comes flying in. He manages to block, but it's basically a dagger versus a giant fist. It smashes into the ground. He can't believe an arm just appeared out of nowhere. That makes defending a whole lot harder. Erd is cheering him on, telling him to show his real potential, and he realizes that even if his life is in danger, she's not going to help at all. The creature lets out another roar, grips its axe and charges him. This time he decides to use magic and blasts it with a fire explosion. But then he panics, saying he used too much power. It's confusing because while he's saying that, an attack is already coming right at his face. He almost takes an axe to the head. Still, he gets excited, saying they're about to find out how many hits this golem can take. Another explosion lands dead on. Both golems close in. One of them is missing a chunk, and the other throws a punch straight at him. The thing is regenerating fast, and his attacks are basically getting nullified. He stabs again, but it does nothing. They start to surround him. He turns toward the one in front and says he doesn't care how many times they regrow that arm, he'll just cut it off again. And he does it again. Meanwhile, Erd just watches, saying the kid isn't bad. A little later, he's facing both of them again, and their arms have been torn off again. But finally, after killing them over and over, they stop regenerating because they're out of energy. He takes a deep breath, realizing his body is exhausted, which in theory is great for him since that's how he gets stronger. He's sure meeting Erd was pure luck. I agree with you, kid. It was luck for all of us. Then he says he just needs one more opening, and he throws himself at both of them, cutting right through the middle. Stone explodes everywhere, and Erd says he was incredible. Now he's fired up, asking who's next. She looks at his face and says this kid is monstrous, like he was born to fight. She was going to stop there, but since he wants more, they decide to keep going. Then the scene shifts to the city sometime later. The protagonist even bought new clothes, plus a little toy for Helena that he thinks she'll like. But as he's walking, he sees some guys in an alley harassing someone, demanding she hand over something. And he recognizes her, the girl from before, Tefania. He doesn't get what's going on, and he sees she's holding two baby birds. The guys have those classic psycho expressions, saying if she doesn't hand them over, she'll be taken along with the birds. Right then, someone yells from behind them. When they turn around, the first one gets a shoe straight to the mouth. The other one's eyes go wide, but before he can do anything, a fist slams into his stomach and folds him. Both of them go down. The protagonist helps the girl up and asks what happened. She says she went out to buy food, but these baby birds fell out of their nest. So she rescued them, and then those guys showed up. The protagonist is confused because everyone around is staring at him now. He says this city feels off, and it'd be better if they left. But then someone shouts at them asking where they think they're going. A weird blonde guy shows up saying they're crazy for hitting people, and then walking away like nothing happened. He asks if they really think they can leave without his permission. His name is Damien. Seeing he's getting surrounded, the protagonist asks everyone to wait a second. Those guys attacked first. He was just defending himself. But Damien says that in Carpen Castle, in the City of Peace, violence of any kind is forbidden, and that's why he's going to be arrested. Yeah, but then you'd have to use violence to arrest him, wouldn't you? Tefania asks what they're going to do, and he tells her not to worry, he'll handle it. Now he's sure something is wrong with this city. If they start a fight here, they'll definitely get hit with even worse accusations. The easiest thing is to solve it peacefully. So he says he'll take full responsibility and that the girl is innocent. The blonde guy makes this unhinged face and says that if that's the case, then fine. Carpen Castle doesn't harm the innocent. The young girl is free to go. Tefania immediately runs off, thinking she has to warn her brother, while the protagonist hopes Charlin is smart enough to hide his sister's powers. Then the protagonist asks what his punishment is going to be. What are they going to do? The guy says, our fair and completely impartial judge will decide your fate. A gavel slams down, and the judge declares that Xavier Benedict has been sentenced to death. The protagonist is shocked, but immediately realizes something's wrong. The good part is Charlin and his sister probably got away, meaning if he wants to leave right now, he could just cause chaos and walk out. But he decides to mess with them and says, Your Honor, that verdict makes no sense. Someone tells him to shut up, but he asks if they're really abusing their power to punish civilians while demons are running around free. The judge says it doesn't matter what he thinks. He won't escape. So the protagonist uses fire magic and says he'll have to show them how someone escapes. The guy freaks out and asks if the kid is really a mage. No, of course not. He just lit 5 matches in his hand. Damien is already looking nervous. He turns and says this is serious. They need to inform the Lord. More people show up pointing spears at the protagonist, while the judge yells that being a mage doesn't give him the right to disrespect the court. And he should give up because it's impossible to escape the castle. But that only makes the protagonist more interested, because right after that, an explosion sweeps through the whole place. Outside, everyone's asking what's going on. Meanwhile, Charlin is whipping the horse forward while his sister asks if the boy is okay. He tells her to trust him. Xavier said if they stayed together, they'd only slow him down. For Xavier's sake, they needed to get as far from the city as possible. The people watching the blast near the court are wondering what just exploded, while the protagonist slips past in the background. The fire and all that chaos would be enough to buy him some time. But the most important thing is that Charlin and Nana get out safely. He runs through the streets and the scene changes to a castle with guards out front. Damien arrives, saying he urgently needs to speak with the master, but he trips like a complete idiot, face plants and drops the little kitten. Then the scene shifts to the forest. Charlene stops in the middle of nowhere and says they're going to camp there. Tiffania asks if he really trusts that Xavier will make it out fine. He says the boy already saved him twice and they need to trust him a little. All they can do is hope he's okay. She's happy, but honestly, this friendship is kind of unusual. He wanted to take a different path, but it'll be hard to avoid fighting completely. While he's wondering what he's going to do, suddenly a hand comes from behind and grabs him around the stomach. He gets carried, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, then gets dropped into a chimney and thrown back out. Seriously, he got carried like trash and didn't even react. He gets up, still in shock because he couldn't sense that person's presence at all. Then the man introduces himself. He's the captain of the Knights of Karpen Castle, Soren Theolimbanen, another ridiculously fancy name. Let's just call him Soren. The protagonist seems to recognize him. Soren is a legendary Sangsparichin. The man looks confused, probably because that's future stuff, and laughs, saying the kid is really overdoing the title. Then the protagonist goes into his usual speech whenever someone shows up. In my past life, during the war against the Demon King, this man fought bravely on the front lines. After 10 years of battle, he disappeared. To think he was a captain here. Soren stares at him, asking what the kid thinks he's doing. Then the protagonist suddenly shouts that he never expected someone like Soren to be part of a tyrannical place like this. Soren says he's jumping to conclusions. But the protagonist explains, he saved a girl on the street and got sentenced to death. What kind of logic is that? If that's how things work here, then countless people must have already died. Soren stands up and says the kid killed a bunch of people with fire magic, so he has no right to talk. Sorry, but that's completely wrong. He was about to be executed. That was self-defense. The protagonist says it was just a distraction. And besides, that court deserved to be turned to ash. Suddenly Soren draws his sword, puts it right in his face, and asks who he is. It's way too strange for someone that young to control magic. But the protagonist doesn't look very scared. He just asks if Soren is really going to kill him to find out the truth. Soren ignores that and asks if the boy knows how to use a sword. Now the protagonist is the one in shock. How did he figure that out? He never used a sword even once. Soren says that look on his face answers it. So the kid is a genius who can use both magic and a sword. That's extremely rare. Too bad he never learned not to show his emotions in front of enemies. The protagonist still doesn't get it. Was this man planning to fight him? There's no denying he's been training desperately for the last 10 years. But standing in front of him is the man known as the Sword Saint. And at this moment it's hard to even measure how strong he is. Soren tells the kid to relax. He looks like he's about to lose it. He doesn't need to worry. Soren isn't going to capture him. The protagonist doesn't understand why Soren is laughing, saying the kid is way too curious. He still doesn't understand anything. Then Soren holds out his hand and says he likes talented people. How about the protagonist becomes his disciple? The protagonist is confused. Why would someone that strong offer something like that? Soren explains that he's very strong, so his student has to be someone with serious talent too. The protagonist tells him his name and Soren says he's heard the name Benedict somewhere before. Either way, he wants an answer. And the protagonist says of course he's interested in becoming his disciple. The problem is he's been away from home for a long time, and he needs to get back to his family so they stop worrying. Soren asks if he ran away from home, but the protagonist says it's a much longer story than that. What matters is that right now he's a wanted criminal in the city of Karpen, meaning he could cause trouble for Soren if he stays around him. Soren says he doesn't care. Karpen Castle today isn't the same as the one he knew. The protagonist notices that even Soren doesn't accept the rules of that place. Soren asks where his home is, and the protagonist says it's at the Castle of Bones. Soren says that's fine, he'll take him there in one day. Xavier is confused. Is he really going to leave his city? Soren explains that these days he's basically just a figurehead. He doesn't actually do anything. Nobody will notice if he disappears for a few days. The protagonist is stunned. How did the legendary Soren lose his influence among those knights? What exactly was going on in Karpen? This is what the guy's already saying. Alright, let's go then. Come on, kid. The protagonist not getting it goes, huh? Go where? He says, relax, I already had some horses prepped so we can get out of here. The protagonist still kind of confused. This is way too easy. Did this guy really want to make him his disciple? Either way, for now he wants to keep Charlene and Tiffania a secret because what if all of this is some crazy plan? So they head to a house. He opens the gate and calls out to some Lucia on the swing. It's a weird thing to say, but I've never seen a story with this many little girls. Please FBI, I'm just reporting the facts here. This is not interesting to us at all. She comes over all happy, hugs dear Soren, asks how he's been, and he asks if she's missed her dad. Damn, I thought she was going to be his sister. This guy's already filled up someone's belly. The girl asks who that idiot is. He says he's her dad's disciple. She takes off running, calling for her mom, saying her dad found a disciple. The protagonist gets emotional. This little girl reminded him of his sister, and inside there was pregnant Elisha Lumbanen. Dear Soren walks into the house all confident, goes right up to her, she giggles, and then he introduces the protagonist, who hits her with a nice to meet you. She asks if he's hungry. This glutton, like always, obviously he is. Everything's simple. She apologizes, but he says it's fine, it's more than good enough for him. Then Soren says that tomorrow morning they're leaving on a trip. She's a bit confused, and he explains he has to take this runaway kid back to his parents so he can bring him back as a disciple. The protagonist tells him to stop treating him like a child, while Soren laughs, until the wife says she'll get some horses ready and tells them to rest. Lucia asks if he's going to be gone long and he tells her it'll be quick, she won't even have time to miss him. The protagonist thinks maybe he overdid it, assuming this guy had some evil plan. Maybe he doesn't, but other people do, and right then someone kicks the front door in. Soren stands up. Outside someone's yelling. He tells the protagonist to grab Lucia and hide upstairs. Soren rushes to the door while the protagonist looks like he won't be able to do much because Soren's probably stronger than him. He runs upstairs with Lucia, who has no idea what's going on. Outside, Soren asks Alicia what's happening. She says these weirdos are invading their property, and obviously who is it? Demian saying that dear Soren, the captain has a peculiar visitor. Soren asks what they're doing there. Did they follow him? Demian answers that it's pretty cruel to talk like that to his superior. Soren should watch how he responds. Soren says this is his house, and he brings whoever he wants. Of course, Demian doesn't accept that and asks if he's really going to hide a criminal. Even Soren questions it. Demian, do you really think the laws from that castle make any sense? The weirdo hugs his little cat and says it doesn't matter. Ever since the laws were established, the castle has been peaceful. Nothing is more important than peace. While they're talking, the protagonist is upstairs telling Lucia to stay quiet. He peeks through the window and hears Demian saying to hand the boy over already, or they'll have to do a forced search. The protagonist says that in his past life, Soren also disappeared mysteriously. Maybe it has something to do with Demian. It's a shame, but every time society gets corrupt, the cruelest people benefit. Good people like Soren end up being used for evil or tossed aside. The protagonist knows that if he stays hidden, he'll cause trouble for Soren's whole family. So he tells Lucia he has to leave, and she should grow up strong to protect her mom and dad. She nods and he gives her a thumbs up, saying he's counting on her. Then he tells her to hide in the closet and not come out until they come back. Right then, the door opens. Soldiers come in and I thought she'd be hidden, but she's just sitting there calmly drawing, asking what Demian is doing there. Soren shows up startled and tells her to get off the floor. He already told her she'll catch a cold on the floor while thinking, thank goodness Xavier got away. Lucia asks what Uncle Demian is doing there. The blonde kneels down and asks where that little friend she made recently is. Wasn't he around? She makes a clueless face. Friend, what are you talking about? Demian says he very clearly saw both of them go upstairs together. She says maybe it was a ghost, then puts on a scared face saying she's afraid of ghosts, and Demian seems to give up. I thought he was about to go crazy and boom, start cutting throats. But seriously, does Soren want his family to die? He goes at Demian and says, you trashed my whole house and you think my wife's gonna clean this up? And the wife jumps in too, saying he better not think he's leaving. And apparently Demian's going to comply. A second ago, weren't they the ones being threatened? Looks like he accepts it, and Lucia gives Soren a thumbs up and he gives one back, thinking that one day he still wants to see Xavier again. The protagonist is on the run. He knows Soren will understand that in this situation the best thing is for him to disappear. He really needs to find Charlene and Tefania fast and get out of there and go home because right now they still trust the protagonist 100%. Do you think he's getting out alive? Yeah, girl, he's definitely making it out alive, and she's smiling, happy. I wouldn't want friends like that. They barely tried anything, just sat in the forest and waited. The good part is that after a long wait, the kid finally shows up, exhausted. And with that, we're finally back in the city of Anzaf. Carriage horses lose impressed the city was big and alive. Everyone looks over trying to figure out who the Blueheads are. They've never seen them around, but one person quickly recognizes him. He looks like the Benedict's son. Isn't that the kid who disappeared? At a stall on the corner, there's a woman putting some things away, and she glances up saying the city's so noisy today, and I forgot her name so I won't know it. But that friend from the beginning sees our protagonist there next to the other girl, smiling, all happy. She grabs her little dress and runs over all excited, stops in front of him, calls out, and he recognizes Cecily and says he's back, all happy. The carriage rolls in and he gives her a little hug. He takes her by the hand and says he wants to introduce the Blueheads, Charlene and his dear sister Tefania. She greets both of them and the protagonist tells everyone to come with him to his house. Leaves in the wind and his mom is sitting on the bench, still thinking about her Xavier. Then she looks to the side and sees the kid standing there, so badly drawn they didn't even bother giving the big-headed one eyes. Even I thought it was a ghost, but no, it's really him in the flesh. She stands up trembling, asking if that's her Funko Pop. The moment she recognizes him, she jumps in, hugs him, crying while the protagonist says he told her he'd be back. Suddenly the door opens. It's his dad who sees the big-headed kid too. The protagonist calls out to him and the dad just starts crying out of nowhere. Everybody cries here. Everyone celebrates, and then Tefania says she misses her dad now and her mom too. Looks like she doesn't have one, right? The dad hugs her and says he'll always be by her side. Then the protagonist says, Mom, stop crying. Come on. I'm gonna introduce you to the Blueheads. Come here. This is Tefania. Yep, Bluehead like you can see. And this is her brother Charlene. The dad greets them saying from now on they're like older brothers. Protagonist, just think the age gap is a little too much for that. All this talking while Cecily's just in the background watching, thinking she's happy, Xavier's okay. I'm waiting for something to happen. Everything's way too calm. Where's the plot? Night falls and Charlene says he's leaving. He's got more to do in life, but our kid goes all dark. He doesn't want to lose Charlene now. So he says the two of them should stay there, and together they should all register as reservists for the Empire's Knights. Next chapter, someone's asking the protagonist for help moving a wardrobe, and the kid's all happy. 3 years have passed, and since the protagonist found out back then that they didn't have a family, he asked them to stay with them. Now they're in the final preparations for the knight selection. Scene switches to Bonnie's castle. 2 little girls are running around. It's dear Tefania and Cecily playing happily. Now they're 11. Looks like everyone's living in the same house. I don't know what's going on. While the dad tells them to stop running or they'll fall and break their teeth, the protagonist is helping his mom carry some boxes. He says they got information from a friend of his dad's who was vice captain of the Knights, a special training system for nobles that would start in 2 months. He opens the window, the city's busy, and asks what's on the menu today. He calls for Erd, who's big as ever. Thank goodness to balance out the mountain of little girls in this story, and she tells him he needs to calm down. He's always training non-stop, whether he's eating or sleeping. The protagonist says he needs to get as strong as possible, as fast as possible. She says the first step to getting strong is being grateful for the life he has. Okay, pure philosophy. And since he arrived in the city for the first time, he should take a walk around all of Bonnie. But the protagonist says no. The truth is he knows this place really well, better than anyone. A city that looks beautiful but gets drained by the nobles. He tells Erd to hurry up because she said he's been really down. Is he missing his childhood friend? He says no. Cecily will show up soon because she's strong. Wasn't she the one who made the potion? Don't you remember? Wasn't there a girl who made the potion? Or am I losing it? Losing it or not, I definitely have amnesia. Then the scene switches to a castle. Someone serves coffee and says, if you fail the selection, I'm not letting you live. And look who it is. Klaus. That kid's still alive. He starts to answer like, yeah. But he stumbles for a second and his dad goes, what weakness is that? Where's your confidence? Do you know how much I'm spending on your training, your teachers? Klaus, all awkward, says he is confident. Yes, but with that mop hair, I don't really buy it. Then he calls his dad, who asks what it is. Klaus asks to be part of the special training team. As affectionate as ever, his dad says something that stupid doesn't even need to be reported to him. Just tell Mikola to prepare everything. Mikael? Yeah, it's pretty weird for a man to be named Mikael. Klaus thanks him and leaves the room. Then the dad says the boy really changed a lot. Mikael agrees. He's been growing well, but the dad says he's calmed down too much. He improved, but he's still far from having any traits of a true noble. He thinks he's hiding it well, but his dad knows the kid loves hanging around poor people. Is that forbidden in the family? Mikaela tries to be positive, saying understanding how the city people survive is a good thing. The dad agrees, but he thinks the boy has some other reason. Klaus tells the knights to stop following him, but they're like, I'm just following orders. He says nobody in the city of Bonnie would dare lay a hand on him. The guy says, all right then, we'll get the carriage ready. But Klaus tells him to stop. He's walking, and he's walking alone, because if he uses the carriage, they'll know where he's going. Damn, this kid's acting kind of strange. He smiles, saying it's been 3 years since he saw that special person. All happy, he says he can't wait to see his savior again. Yeah, no, get out of here. Looks like he got a letter from someone saying that savior had arrived in the city. Was it Cecily who told him? Sure, it's not like she wait a second. Didn't he try to buy Cecily for 3 gold coins? Looks like friendship somehow survived that. Weirdly, Klaus is fixing his hair, saying he's so happy he'll be able to make the best impression and thank that guy for everything he did for him. He walks up all excited to the protagonist. My savior. The protagonist goes, who are you? Klaus goes, huh? It's me, Klaus. The protagonist just stares. Wait, huh? Hold on. Yeah, I don't know who you are. Klaus says he has an idea. Suddenly he messes up his hair, turns around and says, the bastard has the nerve not to know who he is. Right away, the main character recognizes him. Hold on. Is that stupid rich guy from before? And the kid says, yeah, it's really him. Out of nowhere, the main character pulls out his huge sword, puts it up to his neck, and asks what he's doing there. Klaus, all awkward, says the boy misunderstood and that he's changed. But the main character says that's hard to believe. Nobody changes in just a few years. Klaus insists he can even ask Cecily. They've been talking constantly through letters. The main character reads a bit and says, well, yeah, Cecily really has been writing to you. If she's talking to you, then I'll trust you. Done. Klaus relaxes, and the next second he's thanking him, saying the main character is the one who saved him back then. And from now on, forever, he's going to call him Big Brother. He rushes in and hugs him, saying he's been waiting for this day. If he ever wants him to do anything, just say the word. The main character immediately says the first thing he should do is let go and back off. Klaus steps away, and the main character wants to know, so what's going on? Where are your servants? Klaus answers that he sent everyone away so he could have some peace and quiet. The main character says, fine. But if anyone's around, this place is going to fill up fast. So go on, get inside already. Klaus gets all excited, and the main character tells him to be grateful for the chance to visit Big Brother's house. Klaus is running around all hyped up, while the main character is thinking, no way. Someone had to have put some kind of magic on this guy for him to change this much. Then he meets the main character's parents, and Klaus immediately bows and introduces himself as the person who almost got eaten by the magic beast. The two of them are still totally confused, while the main character just tells them to ignore it. This guy isn't right in the head. Klaus says Big Brother really doesn't seem to appreciate gratitude. And the dad thinks it's weird since when does his son have a big brother? And who is this kid? Then Tiffania shows up, brings tea for Claus, and the main character tells him to stop with those sparkling eyes all the time. And also enough with the big brother thing. Use his actual name. The main character is thinking it's the first time he's ever seen a noble like him this much, and something feels off. Then Claus reveals he's also going to be part of the special training. Obviously in his case, he got in through family connections, not talent. But this is the last time he'll rely on connections. He wants to get strong enough to earn the rest of his future on merit. The main character thinks about how everyone knows most knights are nobles because they grease palms and pull strings. While it's peaceful, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But when war eventually starts and nobles turn on the people and abandon the cities, that's when they'll see how dangerous it is. Of course, there are still knights with real ideals, but most of them are just parasites. Claus says the main character might not believe it, but he's reflected on everything that happened 3 years ago. Xavier is impressed. It really did seem like he'd matured. And then Claus goes and reports his own father, saying he has a feeling his dad is planning something bad. But since he doesn't trust the boy, he won't say what. He tried to investigate, but unfortunately he couldn't find anything either. Xavier just watches, not really sure what to say. Then Claus stands up and says he wants to cut all ties with the Claus family. Oh, so I thought Claus was his first name, but it's the family name. But it's going to stay that way anyway. If he doesn't move to another part of the city, the main character says he'll take advantage of the fact that there's nobody around today and go buy study supplies. Seeing that crowd, all the stalls set up, he thinks it's strange. In his past life, this place got completely wiped out in a single demon attack. Since the test is coming up, there are people selling books with tips on becoming a knight, others selling swords. The suckers think it's some insane item, but the main character comments that not everyone realizes this place was already rotting. When were people finally going to notice? Maybe they already did, but nobody says anything. I didn't notice either. Tell me please. The main character goes to a shop selling little backpacks and asks the price. The guy says 15, and the main character asks for 2. But then a commotion starts behind him, shouting, and a woman screams that her bag got stolen. The main character thinks, it's just a bag thief, I don't need to do anything. Someone will handle it. But the woman is falling face first like an idiot, and no knight is doing anything. She's desperate, saying it's everything she has. The main character sighs, yeah, these knights really are useless. He helps her up and tells her to stay there. He'll bring it back. The poor guy selling the sword is the first victim because the main character just grabs it as he runs by, saying he'll return it in a second. He's right behind the thief, but the problem is there are way too many people in the city. So he jumps up onto the stalls, runs over the top of the crowd, and goes straight after the thief, saying he's got a sister waiting at home so he needs to wrap this up fast. But then he sees it. Claus is behind the thief, getting a flaming fist ready. And then, boom, he fires it at the guy's back. Explosion. He celebrates, saying he hit him dead center. But the main character's expression changes, because through the smoke the guy appears completely unharmed, saying it's funny that there's a fire mage here. Yoon replies that the guy isn't bad. He blocked the attack like that, but he shouldn't think he'll get away without punishment for stealing in the city. The main character is impressed. How did a selfish kid suddenly turn into someone who risks himself to protect others? Maybe 3 years really was enough. But the thief pulls out a Beyblade-looking watch, presses both hands at the same time, and launches a fireball at Claus. Claus dodges, but the attack is heading toward the most common thing in this world, a little girl about to die again. The main character makes it in time and rescues her. I thought he was going to put up a barrier. He tosses her to her mom and tells her to take care of her, while he's in shock. This thief is a mage, but apparently he's the kind that relies on some tool. Claus says that bastard is using magic to steal from people. It's disgraceful. And yeah, it's nothing but fireballs in this story. Claus throws another one. Looks like it's mid-rank, and the main character is eager to see how the guy escapes. Another explosion. Well, he escapes the usual way. He just jumps to the side. Full-on Naruto. Then Claus starts throwing out a bunch of rapid attacks. Seriously, he's like an Uzumaki. The main character stays impressed, saying this time Claus wins. Claus launches a huge blast like a spirit bomb. Even the thief is shocked now. Claus is about to destroy half the city with this. Claus says it's too late to make that scared face now. But the thief's expression changes. He shows the Beyblade watch again, and says it's a shame Claus has to deal with this tool. Claus sends the blast at him, and the thief presses the 2 buttons, saying that attack doesn't work on him. The huge blast hits a wall and twists in on itself. The attack doesn't just stop, it changes direction, and comes back at Claus. The poor little noble freezes, not knowing how he's going to escape, and that burning ball is coming right at his face. But don't worry, the main character handles it. He steps in front, the explosion goes off, and then a hand comes out of the flames. It's the boy, just standing there, farming aura. Claus gets emotional that Big Brother showed up. Meanwhile, the thief is confused. How did this kid stop an attack with his bare hands? The main character, acting like a total thug, says that watch is interesting. So interesting it shouldn't be in a thief's hands, so hand it over. Before the guy can react, the main character jumps in, asking if he can block a sword strike with that watch too. The thief presses the button again and says the kid will have to get hurt to understand the difference between them. The reversal watch doesn't only reflect magic attacks. A tornado forms and swallows the main character, and he doesn't even care what the thief is saying. He just wants that item. For a second it looks like he dodged in mid-air, but then another attack comes from below and another from behind. Somehow he steps on the wind from the thief's attack and closes the distance like a bullet. Oh right, I forgot for a second. He's got the power of that gorgeous woman inside him. With Erd's wind techniques, he redirects himself and the blade is already in the thief's face. Next chapter, the watch hits the ground. Claus cheers, saying it's no wonder Big Brother is the strongest. With the huge sword in his face, the thief is shaking. He doesn't even dare move. The main character says, "Alright, you lost. Give back everything you stole or I'm gonna have to cut you." The thief hesitates for a second, and the main character says he won't say it again. The guy begs, "Wait, just a minute. Here, take my item. This is everything I've got, okay?" But the main character just tosses it aside and says, "No, you're handing over that magic tool." The thief starts crying. "No, I worked so hard to steal this. How can you steal it from me like that?" Xavier says, "You stole it, didn't you? So I'm stealing it back." The guy says, "You don't need a magic item. You're a swordsman. Why do you even want something like that?" But Xavier says he's not here to talk. Hand it over or he'll take it by force. The thief hands it over and apologizes. Then the main character says, "Good. Now that he handed it over, it's time to pay for his crimes in a cell." Suddenly a guard steps out of the crowd and says the thief is under arrest for theft. The main character thinks those useless guards only show up when everything's already solved. Real pros at doing the easy part. Claus is celebrating, thanking the main character for saving him like a prince. Meanwhile, the main character says Claus got lucky. The thief had that cool item because that's what he was interested in taking. But first they need to go return what was stolen from the woman. I thought it was the backpack, but the thief actually stole her necklace. She says her husband made it by hand and she gets really emotional, thanking both of them. The main character says it's fine. She just needs to be more careful so nobody steals it again. Claus keeps staring with those sparkling eyes and yeah, I get it. He's totally obsessed. What's gonna happen to this kid because he could die, right? Like someone could kill Claus and that would set the main character off. Honestly, that would be cooler, just my opinion. Then the main character says he's going to buy something for his sister and Claus can go home. But of course the idiot wants to stick to him. As always, with those sparkling eyes. And while they're walking, there's some little comment from someone watching, saying it's hard to believe that guy's son turned into a vigilante. And who's that kid next to him? What? Is he trying to get likes on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers? Activate the cheeky little bell and I'm out.